Good evening, everybody. Tonight, the Housing and Community Development Act Committee will consider city applications. So welcome, all of you. You do a great job, and we'll do everything we can to fully fund all your requests. So first item is, Sarah, do you have anything to? No, okay. First is certificate of rehab program, rehabilitation program. Who is speaking to that?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just have a few items to state a statement regarding the Certificate of Rehabilitation program, just based on some latest information that we received from a report titled After Prison Roadblocks to Reentry, a report on state and legal barriers facing people with criminal records. The Legal Action Center in New York City, a nonprofit law and policy organization, ranked the state of Illinois #1 out of 50 states in developing policies and laws to assist ex-offenders with reentry. This finding is especially encouraging in light of the following barriers faced by people with past criminal histories. 74% of employers say that nonviolent felony conviction is very influential in their decision not to hire. 65% of employers will not hire individuals with even one criminal conviction of any kind. And 43% of landlords are inclined to reject applicants with even one criminal conviction.
Kevin, would you say the first one?
74% of employers say that nonviolent felony conviction is very influential in their decision not to hire.
Not to hire.
74%.
Unbelievable, yeah.
And I'll share this with the committee at the end of the presentation. The elected officials within the state of Illinois are working to decrease the 47% recidivism rate for those without full-time employment after incarceration. The yearly cost for incarcerating those that reoffend due to the lack of employment and housing opportunities is $255 million. The Certificate of Rehabilitation and Sealing of Criminal Records program is both good policy and good practice, because it is consistent with the city's workforce development programs, and it helps to reintegrate qualified individuals back into the community to make them eligible for training, employment, and housing opportunities. So we're asking you to continue your support of this particular program.
Hi. This is not a question about the necessity of the program. You're preaching to the choir here. But in looking at your proposed budget, I was wondering, when I read the narrative, and this may just be my own inattention, but I didn't see child care mentioned anywhere in the narrative. But on the budget, over 10% of the cost goes to child care. I was wondering if you could elaborate on that.
So one of the challenges that's faced with individuals who want to participate in record sealing programs or criminal rehabilitation programs. Some of these individuals have children, and they're required to travel to the circuit court or other places and spend time in the attempt to seal these records or to get the certificates. They're also required to meet with an attorney to assist in the process. And so what we've attempted to do is provide wraparound services to support those particular needs.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
How's the program? This is your second year, is it not?
Well, it will be the second year. And we don't have any results at this time because of our program was interrupted because of the sequester. It necessitated that we're only just beginning the process to start the first program because of the delay and the problems that we're facing in the federal government.
So you got no statistics?
Not yet.
No results?
I don't have any results yet, but what I do have, and I'll share this documentation with the committee at the end of the presentation, is the research and the support to show the effectiveness of the program.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Thanks, Kevin.
Can I
Appreciate it.
approach the
Yeah,
dais?
oh, as long as you're not going to hurt us. Are these the numbers that you were reading?
Yes,
Given to her.
that's just the data that supports.
Okay. I mean, that's an amazing number.
But had we had funding, you would have been able to start the program.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And then in terms of the student, we didn't have money to get it started.
Right. Okay, next program, proposal we're going to hear is the handyman program. Hi, Audrey.
Hello.
How are you?
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I'm Audrey Thompson, the Long-Term Care Ombudsman for the City of Evanston. And first, allow me to thank you all for your time and consideration for the City of Evanston's request in the amount of $35,000 for the handyman program. This program has served seniors for almost 20 years. Its main objectives remain to provide minor home repairs and modifications to income-eligible home owners and renters, 65 years of age and older, and to ensure that seniors are capable of safely remaining in their homes. After seniors meet the eligibility criteria, senior services staff coordinates services for scheduling and completion of eligible repairs. During handyman qualification procedures, senior services staff members are also able to assess other needs that go deeper than simple housing repairs, like repairing a toilet seat or a sticky door, or even modifications like tacking down carpets and installing grab bars or smoke detectors. This assessment continues when the handyman is actually in the home and can see a need for other services and services that he or she will communicate that information back to us. And then we do a triage that will make sure that those needs are met. In the past year, the handyman program has had some challenges. It lost its collaborating contractor, CETA, and also experienced a delay in funding also because of the sequester. As a result of these challenges, we have a backlog of requests and are in the process of identifying a contractor to provide services. Because we have been unable to provide services in the past 9 months, we will work to have a contractor by October 1st and then work to dissolve the backlog as well as future requests by the end of the year. During the previous year, however, the handyman program completed over 175 jobs. The City of Evanston has worked very, very hard to ensure that more Evanston seniors have information about the program through the creation of the benefit card. There are 1,361 seniors who are eligible for the handyman program. Finally, the support that we receive from you is invaluable. We request your assistance so that we can continue to enhance the quality of life for all Evanston seniors. Any questions?
Audrey, will you
Yes, ma'am.
tell the public what the age range is for accessing this program? They have to have the card, is that it?
They have to.
Okay, tell them how to get the card.
Sure. They just come, a senior can come into the Levy Center from 8:30 to 5, Monday through Friday, and bring proof of income and age. So a person has to be 65 years of age and older and then meet the eligibility criteria due to finances.
Okay. They can't apply online.
No. They have to actually show, we don't keep their income, but they actually have to show the income.
And what would that be? What would they have to bring to show you their income?
It could be their last income tax statement. There are a lot of seniors who do not file taxes, so if that's the case, they would need to bring in their Social Security statements.
In other words, a check or a copy. or
Right.
whatever, Yeah.
Right.
Verify income.
They just have to verify.
Ms. Sankey?
Hi, I just have a quick question on your narrative. You indicate an increased or an anticipated increase of about 125% in those that you will serve 2014 over 2013. Is that related to the backlog you addressed, or is this just raw ballooning increase in seniors who are going to need your assistance?
Right. Also, because seniors really want to stay in their homes, and we want them to stay in their homes. So there's more of a push for that.
Yeah.
And so in encouraging that, of course, the handyman program will help them to stay in their homes. So that's really why we anticipate more requests in the next year. And then more people know about the services, and we want them to know about the services. So, that's pretty much why.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So now when people are calling, you tell them, just wait, right?
Actually, we try to do a little bit better than that. So we take all of their information and we just try to stay in contact with them. When I'm walking in the Levy Center, I still have the, hey, don't forget me. So, I have a list of everyone who's called and said, I need X, Y, and Z. So I'm keeping that so that I can go by that list as soon as we have our contractor.
Okay, thank you so much. Anybody else? Nope. Thank you so much
You're
for your
welcome.
work.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Next is the Economic Development Fund, CDBG. Sarah?
Good evening. Sarah Flax, Housing and Grants Administrator. Johanna Neiden, our Economic Development Manager, had a conflict, so I'm standing in for her on this. Pretty straightforward. I think you're all familiar with how we are handling economic development projects with CDBG. Because economic development projects don't come up conveniently once a year when we do our allocations, we put money into a fund that we can then allocate throughout the year, and applications are made through the Economic Development Committee. This was a change that we did a year ago, partly because when we have larger projects where we layer funds, otherwise we made them go to two committees before they went to council, and it was just unmanageable. It was also not good for the committees because they were considering the same thing from different perspectives, and it didn't bring together the whole city perspective on the funding. We have not actually used or presented and gotten approved any applications yet this year, but two are expected to be coming to the committee, Economic Development Committee, in the very near future. Since we started doing direct loans to businesses in our NRSAs to really start generating economic activity, our commitments have been much larger. In the past, when we were doing only facade, it tended to be, 15,000 or maybe 20. I think our largest was 40 to any given business. Our two loans were, one was 130,000 and the other was 75,000. Both were layered with other city money in significant projects that really have been catalysts in our neighborhood revitalization strategy areas. So our request is for $100,000 to be put into that fund in order to fund projects next year. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Any questions, anybody? I think we've been through this so many times, Thank you very much. And like you say, we tried every configuration of, quarterly, weekly, monthly, and just take them as they come. So, anyway, all right. Thank you very much. That your request is $100,000 on that one. Okay. right, next, Penny Park renovations. Yes. Look at them, they're leaving.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Stephanie Levine with the Public Works Department. Penny Park, anyone that's been there knows it's a really unique place in Evanston. It was originally constructed in 1991, the year I graduated from college. And it was designed by Leathers and Associates. It's a very unique. They basically do all custom design playgrounds. They work with community groups, and it was actually constructed by the community in 1991. They raised the funds for the project, and then they actually designed it with Leathers and Associates, and then they actually built it. So it was a really unique experience for the residents of that area. At this point, it's now 22-ish years old, and it's entirely made of wood. So it's really deteriorating, and it's time to take another look at it, and we think rebuild. We have started our process. We started meeting with the community. We did that earlier this year, and just to get a sense of where they wanted the project to go, and if they wanted to kind of recreate the same type of park, the same type of feel that they presently have, and it was a resounding yes. That they wanted to do that. So we're now in the process of trying to gear up for that community effort and that design effort. So we're back with a request this year to help us get a little further along towards funding the project.
Stephanie, this is, what, an $800,000 project around there?
Yes, I mean, depending on all the improvements that are out there, right now the design's very nebulous. We don't really know what we're doing, but it could be as much as that, yes.
Right. And tell us again what the engineering and designing costs are. The one that you're asking, 80,000, is that right?
I think we're presently requesting 50, and we received
You have
30,
yeah,
yes.
Okay, so, but it is 80. I mean, the cost for the design and engineering.
That's what we're estimating presently. What we're going to do is we're going to have to get back in touch with Leathers and Associates, because they're
Still in business?
They are.
For once.
I know, it's amazing.
It's amazing.
It's actually the son of
Excellent.
the father did this, and now the son has taken over the business, and
that's
he's actually
fabulous.
expanded it. So I think they've done now over 3,000 playgrounds, actually all over the world. So we'll need to get back in touch with them. We have not approached them yet and talked to them about what their fees might be. And some of that may depend on, again, the extent of the work and how we approach it with the community. So it's a bit of a guesstimate right now, but based on, prior projects.
And do we plan to replace all of it?
That's presently what we're thinking. There different approaches that we can take.
And do we know what the company is doing these days? Do they have a new version of Penny Park?
All of their projects are completely custom.
Custom.
Every time. So, the idea is they come in and they sit down and work with the community, work with the kids in the community, and really try to come up with something unique and special for every site. And they're pretty much the only folks out there that I'm aware of, anyway, that do this kind of thing.
Well, I think we should stay with them. Alderman Holmes?
Stephanie, was Penny Park one of their first projects?
I don't think so.
No?
I'm not under the impression that it is, or that it was, but honestly,
I just remember the
I'm not sure.
process and all of the community being involved with it. I definitely remember that, but I was wondering if Penny Park had been one of their first projects, that we might be able to get some in-kind help from them.
Well, I'm sure they have records of it, and
I'm sure.
I probably have some in a file someplace. But the most exciting thing about that project was that the neighbors did a strip around the entire area of pennies.
Yeah,
Each one touching each one.
right, that's the name.
Peter?
So-
Alderman Braithwaite?
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. So to answer your, I don't know exactly how many projects that they've done, but in reaching out to them a year ago, they weren't surprised to hear from our community. So it seems like they did a number of these projects right around the same time. And so just based on the dates, there are a number of communities that are reaching back out to them. So it's just interesting how cyclical it is. And the other comment that I would share, I've had a number of meetings with our neighbors, so thank you very much, Stephanie, and to your staff for coming out to meet with them. There's such an enthusiasm within that Penny Park community. Just, it's a young area where it's attracted a lot of families with young children. And so we sort of have a mix in the community with folks that have been there, that worked on the projects, and new families. And to listen to the stories and the thoughts that are shared, you know, this is going to be a great project. So thank you very much, and this was a great presentation.
So there are people there who were there, worked on it?
Yes,
Isn't that
that
fun?
still live in the community. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Keep in touch about the company. And, yeah, it'll be interesting. Moving right along. Okay, next is block curb and sidewalk and ADA ramps.
Good evening. Rajiv Dahal, Public Works Department. This is our annual request for $150,000 to replace deteriorated sidewalks and curbs in the targeted areas to improve walkability. Next year, we're also looking into the feasibility of putting new sidewalks where there are none. We'll be surveying the areas, driving around to find the locations and work with the neighborhoods and the concerned ward aldermen to move ahead with the
How
program.
far from the curb to the property line? What is ours?
We need about 5.5 feet.
But
minimum.
do we own it already?
That's what we'll be looking at. There might be trees and there might be utility poles, but we'll have to do the survey.
And are you going to communicate with the residents as to whether or not they want a
Yes,
sidewalk?
we'll have to have neighborhood coordination.
It certainly
It'll be done
cuts- Yeah.
only if the residents,
Okay.
agree to it.
Alderman Holmes?
Just speaking of something that happened this year, just in my area, the Western area, Block Club area, our street, McDaniel, never had a sidewalk. And it's a very interesting street, and it really wasn't enough to have a regular sidewalk. But they made like a courtesy walk, because all of the neighbors really wanted a sidewalk. And so it has worked out really well. Everybody's just really, really thrilled. So I'm sure that as they meet with other neighbors, there are ways that they can do it, even if we don't own all of the property. So it's something called a courtesy walk that you can get. That's not as large
Right,
as a sidewalk,
yeah,
but it's
that might
enough
be
to walk
okay,
down.
yeah. It's not very controversial. Until you start inquiring, then. Yeah, because I know people who don't want sidewalks, just like people who don't want their alley paved. My block doesn't want its alley paved. All right, next, never mind. Alley paving program. Don't come to my alley, okay? There is a man on Brummel who, every chance he sees him, he says, "We have the most beautiful alley." Thank you. Did you get one? Here. you can share. Do you have one more for Sarah? She has the application this week. You can give me the map. Okay. Welcome.
Good evening. Sat Nagar Public Works. The request for funding for 2014 is for 2 alley locations, north of Greenwood, east of Dodge, and north of Greenwood, east of Darrow. As I was talking to Alderman Burrs just before the meeting, most of the easy alleys are done. The ones we have are the hard ones, where it's very hard to get the consensus, as well as the income limits are different. So CDBG is a great asset for us to continue with the alley paving program. The alleys that we pave are concrete alleys with drainage system. They last 40 to 50 years, very minimum maintenance, and there is pretty much cleans up the whole alley. So this has been funded quite regularly by this CDBG committee, and we are requesting $300,000 for 2014.
And the lines, everything within these lines?
The yellow lines, yes, there is the alley.
Everything?
Yes.
Look, it's more than this, and this?
Yeah, it's a big alley. It's an H alley. Huge. And when it is a big alley, it's very hard to get the consensus too. Bringing more than 50% of the homeowners to the table and agreeing to proceed with is not easy as well. So.
And there aren't that many properties. Interesting. Yeah, very few. All right, anybody have any questions about this? Nope. No. Whose ward is this? Peter, is this your ward? Good. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, is Snap lighting? Who's going to be Snap? How are you? Who's doing Snap lighting?
Oh, Reggie.
Okay, Rajiv. All right, since you're here, let's just do it. And call up these other people, get them over here.
Rajiv Dahal, Public Works Department. We also have an application for $75,000 fund request to do the SNAP lighting program. That is to improve street lighting in the target areas for safety reasons. Last few years, we upgraded the lights at Darrow and Jackson. This year, we're leveraging the other city projects, the Church Street lighting project and McDaniel lighting project, to purchase about 140 induction lights, and then go into the target areas and upgrade the lights from 85 watts to 165 watts.
For the Talmadge?
For the Talmadge. We will be bringing the purchase order for council's approval in October.
And should we apply, various aldermen who have areas that qualify?
Sure.
We'll let you know where there are some problems.
Yes.
Hear that, everybody? Okay. All right, anybody have any questions? We've been doing this program for a while. Oh, I'm sorry, Peter.
It's just a quick question, and we already know the answer, but I'm curious to know why we can't use these dollars for some alleys, particularly those that we have numerous complaints and high crime.
But we have an alley lighting program.
Yeah, I think it's, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I think our staff wants to weigh in on this. You want to just?
I'll weigh in on it, too.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Dolores.
The alley lighting program is so reasonable
Yeah.
that I could
It's
never
hard.
support it. I just can't, because, it's $11 a month.
Wait, you can support the alley lighting program?
Absolutely,
Yes,
but
yes,
not
I do,
support-
me
not-
too.
no, I
But the
would-
problem, Alderman Holmes and Alderman Braithwaite, is I really think we ought to get our staff together to really focus on the alley lighting program, because people don't really know about it. I mean, those of us who tell people about it know about it, but there's this whole other group of people who, they have no idea. People call up, complain, I said, do you know how much it would cost for you to light your alley? They don't even believe me when I tell them.
I know. And that's why I said, well, you're right, probably the education piece is very important. But I just think that is something that 2 or 3 neighbors could get together and do it for their whole alley.
Oh, I pay for mine. I
I
see
pay for
value
mine
in
too.
it, but there's, again, in just one specific area, there are 2 foreclosed homes. The alley's very dark. It's close to the high school, and
Maybe the high school will pay for it.
Yeah, I would, really, I bet they would.
would love for them.
I'm going to ask staff to give some thought to doing an announcement in the water bill. I know it won't get to everybody, but it'll get to enough people, at least get to one person on every block, explaining the LA lighting program. I mean, Peter, we've been talking about this way too long. All right. Okay. Targeted code enforcement. Mr. Kaniva, how are you tonight?
Good evening. Let's really raise that up. Good evening, Carl Kaniva, Assistant Director of the Health Department. I'm here to speak on the Health Department's request for funding for CDBG funds for targeted code enforcement. The program has been with the city since the 1970s, and our inspectors that this funding responds to is we have 4 field inspectors, we have 1 customer service representative, and also 1 field staff supervisor charged with spending about 75% of their time in the CDBG area. And they're charged with looking for things that are typical of a definition of blight. So we're looking for dilapidated housing, we're looking for structures that are in poor condition, as well as interior structures when we go into rental housing and making sure they meet minimum life safety issues. So we're making sure that they have carbon monoxide detectors, smoke detectors, things like that. It was a great opportunity in the last year for this program to come into the Health Department, because there's a lot of opportunity to look at things like cross-training as we move forward, so that when we do go into rental housing, there's an eye not only to the structural deficiencies, but also as to what health implications those could have. So when we look at things like stairs that are failing, we can relate that to physical injury. When we see things like water damage and mold, we can relate that back to asthma and those health conditions that are associated with that. So this program, we hope that we take on the excellent program that the community development and Jeff Murphy had prior to our staff, and we hope we continue that with a step forward as we look at cross-training and things like that going forward. And it was only with the the help and the assistance, the funding of this committee, that we can hope to reach some pretty high goals and meet the city's main goal of making this the most livable city. And with that, I'd ask any questions.
I'd just like to make a comment that I think this particular program played the most important role of anybody, and I know residents and landlords and everybody else was involved, in making properties on the south end of town habitable and decent over the years. And it was the key factor. It played the key role. And that was back in the day when we were taking every case to Skokie, to the circuit court. It was time-consuming. It was just, and some of you remember that. So anyway, it's a wonderful program, and without this money, we couldn't have really focused so heavily on certain areas. So. All right, any questions? Nope. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. Housing Rehab Administration. Moving right along.
Good evening, Alderman
Good
Rainey,
evening.
and the rest of the aldermen and council members. My name is Jeff Murphy. I'm the manager of the inspection and the building and inspection services. This is my 5th or 6th time here requesting funds for 2 different programs. The housing rehab program is really a huge asset to the city, and has been recognized by staff in Washington, CDBG officials in Washington during one of our reviews, one of our audits a few years ago. Even though we have an economic boom, a mini boom going on right now, and we're really seeing a lot of permit revenue, we're also seeing a huge increase in the amount of applications we're receiving to help families in many parts of the city. It's not even one specific part. Currently, we have 6 jobs going. We have 5 applications pending, anything from sewer lateral collapses. We have somebody that has a roof that's leaking, is probably leaking at this moment. There's just a variety of issues that come up on a daily basis. We've become more efficient, as you can see by the dollar amount we're asking for. We have our assistant who works with our rehab specialist is actually now, which is billed 0.6 of her full-time position to CDBG. The rest of it's for business licensing and other tasks. So the other improvement we made this year is we're using a new loan portfolio management tool called CDM. So our housing rehab specialist is going to be able to use this in the field to write scopes of work using a mini iPad. That's going to make him more efficient, and we hope to continue on with this program. It's been going now for 20 plus years, and our portfolio right now that we're managing is over $2 million. So that just gives you an idea of the size and scope of what we're doing.
For the public who might be listening, or they might see a rerun, who can access this program?
Well, this program now, it's going to be accessed pretty much by everybody in community development. So all our NSP housing programs are, of course, housing rehab, our home program, anybody who handles portfolios with the city.
I mean, what citizen, resident, how do we access housing rehab in the city of Evanston?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry. So we have a website, and we're available either through 311, through community meetings. We're doing Spanish language outreach in the next few weeks. But generally, most of our calls tend to be of an urgent nature, so they come directly through 311 right to us.
But who can, let's say you have a case, somebody's roof is leaking, okay?
Yeah.
What kind of individual, what income level, do they have to live in a certain neighborhood? Do they have to live in a single-family home? Who is eligible to get housing rehab assistance?
Our typical client's single-family homeowner,
Okay.
owner-occupied single-family, sometimes two flats.
What about income?
Income, 80% of the median income is defined by HUD or below. We find typically we don't get many people between 60 and 80%. We're looking at people that are well below 60%, which falls into our title rehab or our title transfer loan program. And that's the biggest part of our portfolio, actually, looking at what we have. We have 66 title transfer loans right now, which means that by definition, those clients are under 60% of the median. So we're helping people that can't get help anywhere else. We're really the last place for them. So.
Just in case anybody's listening. Sarah, do you have something to say?
I just wanted to note also that an important thing that we can help with and have done a lot with is when people are cited for code violations, they get referred to housing rehab, and that's one of the ways we help people. It's not just tell them that they're, not code compliant, but then giving an opportunity to fix up the property. Again, with these title transfer loans, which I think are critical, especially for our seniors who are staying in their homes and need more than the handyman program can do, but they are living on fixed incomes. They cannot afford any kind of payments, so it really helps. That's why Jeff pointed out that so many of them are that very low income group.
Right, and just to add, the expertise that our rehab specialist has, he has to be a social worker, he has to be a contractor, he has to be a project manager. He has a skill set that you just don't find out in the market. There is no equivalent in the private sector. We deal with hoarding quite often, probably a third of all our cases. So we're dealing with people who've never really dealt with or trust contractors of the city, so we're providing a valuable service. And we get a lot of compliments, and we've always passed our HUD audits with flying colors. So.
I remember years ago, Alderman Holmes, I know you're going to remember this, especially working with CETA. There was always this fear that once the city got involved in doing title transfer, any of that kind, that the city was going to take your house. And that was just the most difficult hurdle to overcome. But evidently, we've moved on from there.
Yeah,
because the bank's taking your house now.
Yeah, and we've been really actually pretty fortunate. We're dealing with high-risk clients, and we've had very few of our clients go into foreclosure. And that says something about the resiliency of our clients. They want to stay in their homes, and that's what we're here for. That's our mission.
And you guys do a good job of evaluating, et cetera. Excellent. And the person is fabulous, the one you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, any questions, anybody? No, hang in there. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, you're going to
Yep.
do graffiti?
Yeah, so I'm big for graffiti, and graffiti it falls into the old broken window theory. We have to remove it as soon as it occurs, and so we have a staff member who's an Evanston resident who's been doing this for I think now about 18 years, and everybody knows him. And he's very good at what he does, and but he provides an invaluable service. He coordinates with private contractors to remove difficult graffiti. He takes care of all the public, signage and mailboxes and street lamps and just about any you can think of, signs that are put up, pasted up on street lamps. But if it wasn't for his efforts, the city would no doubt be covered in graffiti. A few years back, we had a problem where the people tagging were etching glass using shoe polish, I believe it was, and you cannot remove that. You can remove the color, but you can't remove the etch. So staying on top of that, I think we really nipped that one in the bud, and we hope to continue this program in the future. We're asking for 50% of the funding of the actual cost, and I think it's well worth the investment to keep the city looking the way it does.
If you see graffiti in town, well, call, but if you see it like 2 days or 3 days in a row, the only reason it's still there is nobody's called it in. Yeah.
You have to call as
So,
soon as you see it.
all right, Ms. Sankey and then Alderman Braithwaite.
Just a quick
And then
question to
Stewart.
the sustainability of the program. You're right. He is a god amongst men, and he should be honored at the White House for the work he does. And I mean, it is astonishing some of the stuff he removes and the speed and the skill with which he does it. My question, not specific to this grant or this grant cycle, is what are we ever going to do if for any reason we lose him? Has any thought been given to the sustainability of our graffiti removal in Evanston?
Well, that's a really good question. I was thinking about this on the way in. We used to have the Cook County graffiti busters that Carlton used to use as an asset. They would take 2 weeks to remove graffiti. They didn't get funding, and they are gone. So Carlton was always the last line of defense. Honestly, if it wasn't funded, we would have to look at possibly private sector graffiti removal services.
We're going to fund it. What happens if
But
Carlton?
That's not what I mean. I mean, if anything should ever happen to Carlton, what are we going to do?
Oh,
Do you have? Yes.
a succession plan for Carlton, or just the
Exactly.
funding?
I consider that to be integral to the
Looks
sustainability
really
of our
healthy
efforts.
at the moment.
Yes, yeah.
No, nobody's going to cut the program.
Okay, that's good. I'm sure Carlton will be happy to hear that. if he's listening.
Maybe he could get an apprentice or something, just,
That would be really nice. That would be great.
then he can do it twice as fast. Alderman Braithwaite.
Just the same thing. Maybe Mr. Brown can look into assigning him apprentice at a very fair price. Just a quick comment about the program. And, in the ward behind the alley of Greenleaf and Dodge, just for years, that used to be a graffiti spot for our Evanston youth. And slowly over the last couple of years, it just seems that more individuals from the city of Chicago, adults, were coming in to tag, and to the point where it starts to spray over into other businesses. But Carlton came, and in a very short period of time, working with our community economic development staff, was able to work with the businesses, get the alley painted, and the area just looks so much better. So just a word of thanks to him and the staff that was involved. This is a great program, and I'm definitely supporting it.
Thank you.
Stu Updike.
Do you ever catch any of these kids?
Honestly, the police do. We don't catch them ourselves. We pretty much respond to the complaints. So
But you show up in court if they're charged by the police.
yes, Carlton has gone to circuit court before, and in some cases there have been fines assessed where parents had to pay for the removal. I can think of a couple cases off the top of my head.
My alley.
I know there was a Oh, I'm sorry. I know there was a boy about 3 years ago, I want to say, and the cops busted him. He lived in the north side of Evanston on McDaniel. Do you know what the disposition of that case was?
No, I don't. I could find out, but if memory serves me, I believe that he was convicted and his family paid for, it was restitution and a fine. I'm not entirely sure.
What's the usual disposition of a kid who's caught?
That would really be a question for the police. Honestly, I don't know. That's not.
Well, does the city have any input at all in the disposition, as far as a fine or sanctions or consequences?
Yeah, it would. I mean, we have an administrative hearing system, but I don't believe the offenders in this case are brought to administrative hearings. If there was, the minimum fine would be $150.
No, I'm talking about the criminal. This is a criminal offense, is it not?
It's vandalism, plain and simple.
And and that falls under the.
It's a misdemeanor, right?
Yeah, it's in Title IX of the City Code, which is the police enforcement.
But if the judge finds FINDS, finds a kid guilty of this, does not the city have some input in as far as the disposition is concerned?
I assume our legal department does, but again, I don't have any direct knowledge of how that, what that mechanism is.
Let's get a report on that, okay?
Okay.
Can you get us a police thing during the week?
Sure,
Yes.
absolutely,
Okay.
yeah.
Alderman Holmes?
Well, I wanted to say, Stu, I think that was the case I was referring to, Stu. I believe that was the one upon Lincoln, where, remember all the graffiti? I think that's the young man he's talking about. But I thought once they went to court, it becomes a court thing, and it has nothing else.
And a
the
lot of
city is
times
not.
they're juveniles?
Absolutely.
So you don't know anything? I mean, well, you know, Stu.
But the city has some say in how the disposition of the consequences these kids face when they're convicted, do they not?
Not in circuit court.
No, I couldn't answer that. What I can tell you what we do, I mean, I'm saying a lot of no's, we don't do this. And one of the things about having an Evanston resident being the graffiti removal technician is that, in this case, Carlton knows the paths the taggers take. Many times they're coming from the high school. He can go down and he can predict where and when the graffiti is going to occur, and he can follow a path and remove it. And that's what makes him really efficient at doing it. But confronting them, if he saw somebody tagging, he would basically tell them to move along. But the big problems where you've got gang graffiti or something really objectionable, it's a police matter.
Right. The other thing I wanted to say, I just wanted to really follow up on Alderman Breathwaite's suggestion about talking to Kevin Brown and the youth and young adults, because I think this would be a way to create a new job. And also a skill.
A business.
Absolutely. And so I hope you guys will follow up on that, because that's really very creative, Alderman. I like that.
I just want to say one thing to Stu about how the court handles this, because I was involved in a case. My block, 6 blocks on Dobson one time were hit from, I think, Asbury all the way to Target. And fortunately on my street, I can't say who, but not I. Somebody has a camera. And every one of our garages, I think it's like 46 garages got hit with the same exact tag. And when the kid got to the garage with the camera, he goes like this. He he had an overcoat on, reached into his pocket, got a spray can out, right in front of the camera. So we circulated the picture and found out who it was, and took him to court. We all went to court, like 15, 20 of us went to court, and the judge, he was a neighbor, the judge ordered him to pay restitution, to pay for all of our efforts to clean up our garages, and go to counseling. We found out later he never paid a penny to anybody. I don't know if he went to counseling or not. We never got any follow-up, but not one of us, and we all submitted our receipts and everything, nothing, nada. So, but he didn't do it again. And then we had another case in Dobson Brummel Park. And kid was coming down Asbury, went to Pope John, coming down Asbury, spraying everything in the park. And he was more or less caught on a camera. So it had no idea who it was. So the neighborhood had some teenage girls. So a police officer put the girls together and played the video, and the minute he came on, they went, "Oh, that's so-and-so." And so he never did it again. But he did clean up all. Remember when he came all the way down Asbury, tagging every sign every day? It was horrible. And they caught him. Yeah. So people got to help out, you know?
Yeah, and maybe to add one comment to what your question. So Carlton's other expertise is he can identify gang graffiti tags really well. He can read that. So he has a pretty good idea, and he records that, and he keeps metrics on it. So he'll work with the police, and he can say, he's removed these tags from this gang, X amount of times in this area. And that's about as far as he'd go. But that is an expertise that he's picked up over the years.
But I think we ought to look at how can we make this a city code violation so it can be handled in administrative adjudication, because it's so much easier for people to be here than out in Skokie, and I'm sure they don't treat these very seriously.
Alderman Rainey?
Yeah.
I do have knowledge of a program based to deal with youth vandalism. It was back in the 70s, but it was created as a municipal ordinance. It was municipally adjudicated here on the North Shore. I can tell you all about it.
I'm sure we can do it. I mean, we do it with liquor, so we can do it. We should talk about that. Could you, maybe
sure.
we could contact legal or something? I mean, we have kids in here with tickets for drinking.
Right.
Why can't we have kids in here with tickets for graffiti? Drag their parents in and, It really costs a lot of money sometimes, and it costs the taxpayers, because here we are, allocating money to remove it.
Yes, it's really expensive, and it's expensive when we have to bring in a private contractor with specialized equipment.
On brick and stuff like that, yeah, that's a mess. Sidewalks, our sidewalks, and signs, everything. All right. I think we're going to probably support this.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff, for all your hard work. You do great work. All right, next is Alley Special Assessment, and then CDBG Administration.
Sarah's on again.
Good evening, Ms. Flax.
Hello again. Alley Special Assessment Assistance, where we do not have a CDBG paved alley, what we are able to do is pay the special assessments of homeowners whose incomes are at or below 80% of area median. And this is very, very important in getting the petitions through in alleys where anyone could be faced with something that could really make them unable to keep up with their regular homeowner costs. This year, we have a very, very small request because there is just one tiny little alley that is actually where people are eligible. It's about half a block, and it runs between Sherman and Washington, north-south. So it's very rare that you'll see only a $5,000 request for alley special assessment assistance. We are just about ready to mail the notice for the alleys that were done last year, and frankly, we expect that that will result in probably close to $50,000 in requests, because that's what happens when we have large alleys where they are high cost per individual homeowner because of all the drainage and things like that. And it's really a vital way of balancing getting alleys paved, and also in areas where we can't use CDBG because the low mod population isn't high enough to be eligible, but it could really hurt homeowners. So As I say, this is a very small request this year, but an unusual one just based on when the alleys are, what alley was being paved.
And you're pretty sure you know who, yeah.
Yeah, it will help if we ever get the updated income in our database from HUD, because what's happening right now is we're still basing everything on old income data, but I work really closely with our public works people, and they know how many inquiries when the alleys are the petitions are underway. They have a pretty good feel of who's going to need help. I keep a list of people who have approached me about assistance so that, because there's always a delay. We get the petition, then it's usually another year before their alley is paved, and then it's another year before the mailings go out, because that's when all the final assessments are finalized. And
Their status can change
right.
dramatically.
Their status can change, and also many of them, again, are seniors. They're concerned that they'll miss it, they'll forget. So I have a running list, and if I don't hear from people, I call them. So
That's good. That's really good.
we also do the mailing in English and Spanish, because we have had a number of Spanish-speaking families that need that. They need it in their language, and I think that's had a big impact in some years in some areas.
Questions? Any questions on this 5,000? Seems, I'm glad we have it. All right, CDBG Administration and Planning, this is the lifeblood of our Community Development Block Grant Program.
Well, somebody's got to do all that compliance and stuff, right? So
we should worry about what happens when she leaves. I mean, then we're in real trouble.
the federal government has said that CDBG is their single most complicated grant program.
No
and,
kidding.
It is the only one where they allow as high a percentage of the grant to be used for administration, but there are a lot of different duties. In 2014, we are going to be developing our next consolidated plan, because hard to believe, we are in the 2014 is the 5th year of our 5-year consolidated plan. So we will have the additional duties of completing that. Plus, we're going to have the fun of trying to do it in their new online format, which we are not hearing good things about, but I'm sure we'll figure out how it'll work. That's an important strategic planning tool for the 5 years going forward. We'll be working closely. It's neatly timed when we're looking at the comprehensive plan, and I think there's a real opportunity to make sure that we are doing everything to pull those two plans together and make sure they work together. In addition to me, our housing planner, Mary Ellen Poole, is funded a significant portion of her salary because she also works on the action plan and the con plan and the CAPER, and is also my backup on a lot of CDBG stuff, plus various other piece parts of people for all the different tasks they do. Any questions?
I want to know, is the NSP2 job going to be filled?
We are actually creating a somewhat different position. We are filling a position. It is not a senior position. We were just finalizing the job description because we've really finished most of the strategic work, but there is an amazing amount of compliance. So we are actually splitting that position between some of the CDBG responsibilities and some of the NSP responsibilities. There are similarities, of course, between the compliance responsibilities, but NSP we will have for the next 15 to 20 years, depending on the property. We'll have to confirm that the houses are occupied by the appropriate people, and so that's a big job.
I knew that was the case, that NSP2 is only, but that can be as complex and as complicated, and it's not a simple job. And I just hope that we treat that position as I hear you saying it's not going to be a senior position, but hopefully we'll take it very seriously.
Well, we are taking it very seriously.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to comply, and we've got to report, and
Yep.
I just think it's a difficult job.
And we also, one of the pieces that the new person will take on is all the environmental reviews for our CDBG and home projects, because Susan Gutterly, who retired recently, was doing that. And that's, again, so it's not, when I say it's not as senior, it doesn't require the same strategic thinking necessarily, but there is a lot of thinking and there's a lot of just getting very detailed work. It's an important job.
Knowledge for those jobs.
Yes.
I mean, where do you find somebody that has all of that? Unless
That's tough. Usually we train them.
Well, right, or they've just retired and they
Right.
don't want to work anymore.
Exactly. Not too many people hanging around with a lot of experience in this. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. And I just want to say to everybody out there in TV land, and I know the committee agrees, that we couldn't be in better hands than having you as our staff person. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Given your reports, do you have any staff comments?
Just want to remind everybody that our funding decision meeting is this coming Tuesday, which is the 24th of September. It will be in council chambers. It's beginning at 7:30 instead of 7 o'clock, pushed half an hour later. Very important. The committee makes its deliberations on how to allocate funds, where we will be working with an estimate for our 2014 funding. The federal government hasn't passed the budget for 2014, and it doesn't look like it's likely to happen in the very near future. We're maybe hoping optimistically for a continuing resolution at this point so that the government doesn't sort of go into hiatus. But I will keep you posted on what we see there.
I'm going to ask, I know that we have this new program, but will you give a spreadsheet?
Yes, in fact, I
Is
emailed
already
it
in
out
there?
today.
Oh, I didn't.
Well, it was probably when everybody was in transit here.
Oh, okay. All right, that's good. So it's here. And what number did you use for?
For the 2014 grant amount, I'm estimating $1.5 million, which is about a 10% reduction from our 2013 grant. I think it's easier to have more to allocate than to have to cut. And we really are getting no indication from our Chicago field office or from HUD. The president's budget requested level funding, but that was pre-sequestration level funding, and there's a lot of back and forth about whether sequestration will be overruled or whether it will stay. So there are just so many unknowns. I'm trying to estimate conservatively.
Right, and what about program income? Was there anything?
We do have some program income. I think I just did it shortly before the meeting. It's at about $70,000. This is significantly down from last year, because last year we had the money from the sale of 1817 Church Street. So what's going to happen is it's going to make especially hit our public services, where 15% of the prior year program income gets added into what we can take 15% of. We don't have a whole lot of revolving loan payments, as Jeff pointed out. They're title transfer, so we aren't getting, we don't get a predictable income from that. So what I do is I use only what we've received to date.
And leftover money from?
About $60,000 in unspent to reallocate.
All right. I'm sorry I didn't see that, but I was not near a computer.
It was while you were in transit, so.
All right, anything, anybody? Comments? No? All right. Glad you're back, Jennifer. Sorry about your loss. All right, everybody, move to adjourn. Second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?